Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Remember Skies of Arcadia. We have a lot of stuff that's going down. So we're going to eventually head back to Dangrel Island. We've rebuilt our island a little bit in what is probably a little too quick of a realistic time frame, but it's time for us to do what we can to stop Galcian. I want to see, now that if I have the 2 pieces of Valorium, if I can buy the Vorlic blade from Ryu Khan. I forget if there's a time it takes to forge the blade. I think there might be, but this sort of segment is one of the last we truly have before we jump into sort of what's really the end game, and there's not a lot of real turning back. Talk to Ryu Khan. Aha. So we'll give gold to Ryu Khan. You will get to see me take care of the blade on screen. I know that's not the most exciting way to start off a game with a segment rather, with item acquisition, but I nonetheless want to see if I can have this weapon before heading to Dangrel Island, and before heading to, particularly later on, the fight against Galcian. We did pick up some armor, so I'm going to make sure that I can equip that. My characters are in a really good place right now. I'm not particularly worried about going through the rest of the game. Feeling pretty comfortable. And so we can get some equipment on, and I have to leave the island and then head back onto the island and possibly even do it again. But really, this game is picking up in a lot of ways that are not insignificant. And I'm very glad that you are here. This is a long video series. I know people probably haven't watched it all the way through, but we'll sort of deal with things as we go. So let us move forward and do what we can. There's probably still, looking back on the last video, there's probably still a lot of things I could say about Fina, and that I want to say about Fina, but I don't want to, excuse me, I don't want to overdo it. I want to sort of collect my thoughts a little bit. Let us talk to Ryu Khan. Have I heard of Valorium? Yes, I have. I have some right here. And so he will forge it. We'll get it on our next return back. So it's really tempting. I don't have a lot of money, as you might have noticed, because I sort of spend all my money, or not all of it, a significant amount of it on seeds from Ilkimus, because that just turns Vise into a super killy beastie. So let us do this. We will leave the island one more time, return and see if that's the case. If not, I'm sorry, you'll just have to watch me sort of ping-pong ball back and forth for a moment. I could have done this off-screen, but I'm not doing that right now, because there's not a lot of things left for us to do except really drive through the story. I think it's Dangrel Island, then Galcian's airship, which you will see, which will be a long ship battle sequence, and then the final dungeon as well, which will lead us into some pretty exciting stuff. So we've really reached the end game here. So I will ask your indulgence in sort of me dealing with this final segment and getting all of the potential things together. I'm not actually even worried about, say, like, the strength of my ship. What I can do is I can check the Delphinist for just a moment, maybe, and see if there's anything I want to equip Right, so we want... Ooh, controller. We want the controller to stop, but we want something that will do us a little better maybe in some other areas, but it doesn't really do... Like, we have a lot of decent stuff, so we're in a good shape. If I had a lot of money, I would buy a lot of upgrades for the ship, but I'm not going to really do that. I just don't really feel like there's the need. So let us see if somehow he's forged the blade very quickly. Yes, he did. The Vorlich blade. So this is Vise's ultimate weapon in this game. So what we will do is we will equip it, and then we will just sell off any of our excess stuff, go through the world to the... Oh, I had the Thunder Cutlass the entire time. Didn't even realize it. 590 or 74. Oh no, its base attack is 200. All right. For a minute, I was like, that's higher than Final Cupil. That's wrong. As we've recently discussed in another segment, Final Cupil has an attack value of 500. So don't y'all fuck about when Final Cupil's around. If you're curious about what Final Cupil does, it just eats the enemy and spits it out. So, you know. Don't worry too much about that. So I have money to spend. We will check the ship's store, the equipment shop downstairs, and we'll sort of do that. The first 10 minutes of this segment sort of being a preparatory statement that will drive us into the final few, I guess, paragraphs of the game, right? For whatever sense that sort of sentence made. So this should be Belle and everyone because they're on active. Or maybe they just take over, I forget. No, she's not on active. Kazim's on active, so they just take over. Kazim's in the other room. So we have a lot of good stuff. I do want to buy a surplus of kits while I can. And so now, actually, you guys are going to hate me. But this is part of what you do in games, so I shouldn't be afraid to show it. I am going to buy more seeds for Vise. I will hopefully use them to great effect in the next sequence on Dangrel Island. It's just a way to... It doesn't completely break the combat system open to the nines the same way that using Urala in ship combat does, but we have a lot of things that we can do here. So we want Paranta seeds, and you know what? We're just going to go to town and buy as many as we can. So now we have 800 gold. But you know, it is what it is. And it's not necessarily the biggest gain. I still like it. So it's 3 each. So it's only going to be a gain of 24 additional power. But every little bit helps. Before, earlier in the game, after I had sort of turned in all of my discoveries, I bought like 70 of them. At the very least, my number of Paranta seeds consumed by Vise has exceeded 50 and at least probably 65 as well. So we'll head back to Dangrel Island. I'm showing the travel times just to sort of give each episode a little bit of breathing room. Back when sequences... No, controller. Back when sequences were a little longer, sort of cutting and having fun with transition effects, you know, in iMovie or whatever. That was cool, but now it's just like I sink down below the clouds and I go. And the game doesn't necessarily presume any more major growth upon my characters in a numerical sense. Like, obviously the enemies in these dungeons are going to get harder, but I sort of power up and level up at a rate commensurate to whatever is within the dungeon. It doesn't, now that I can bypass pretty much all of what might be happening on the world map, the game doesn't have encounters that are really balanced on the idea of, okay, well, this person is obviously going through the world map and encountering a lot of random enemies. It doesn't really function like that. So where's Dangrel Island? Dangrel Island I always have a little bit more trouble finding. Even though I really shouldn't, it's right near me. And it has this big fuck-all giant bridge thing. But here we go. So this segment will be Dangrel Island. And we're just going to keep on moving through everything. My goal today is to finish up the game. Even though I don't know how prepared I am for that. On many different levels, in terms of what I want to discuss, in terms of sort of the emotional impact that will have, because make no mistake, the game will have an emotional impact on me, and I want to bear that sort of thing with grace when the time comes, which will be difficult because emotions are tricky things. I've certainly had no problem showing off vulnerabilities in, this video series, but at the same time, I want to be able to speak in a manner that is moderately understandable. We'll worry about that when the time comes. So, Dangrel Island 2, as we sort of consider it, right, isn't too bad. The trickiest thing is the boss that we are going to encounter, and you'll see who that is in a couple of moments. But we actually have a couple of really smart tactics that we can use against this boss, so I'm not too concerned. And I'll talk about that tactic when it comes up, because I think the tactic, well, not maybe intentionally having some sort of thematic relevance, or maybe it is, I don't know, I'm not, I didn't design the game. It certainly has some sort of personal significance and satisfaction factor to it. So we take the giant elevator down to pretty much deep sky, although it doesn't take us completely down deep sky. Gilder's confidence, by the way, I mean, every character has confidence. Gilder's brand of swagger is very intoxicating. I mean, Aika's got a lot of sass, Vyse has a lot of, bright optimism. Fina has something a little bit more refined. Gilder's just cocky, and so here's our boss. Vigoro. And so we'll sort of talk about Vigoro as we go about in combat and everything, and Vigoro, the handling of Vigoro is strange, because he's at both times somebody who goes between, like, competence and then, like, some shades of buffoonery, and then, like, the implied depravity that came during the Great Fortress segment. It's very strange. He's not actually a hard character to deal with, though. I do want to do extra damage. If he hits, he'll do extra damage against me. But that's okay, I guess. So, you might remember when we fought Vigoro, he was able to charm Aika. We can use Panica on Vigoro because Vigoro is highly, and I mean highly, susceptible to confusion. So, and look at that, we get about 1,000 damage, or like 900 damage, rather, from Vise, whereas, you know, Gilder's doing 300. But this should confuse Vigoro, which is good because his special attack is pretty strong. That cannon he has packs a wallop. He's actually a pretty hard-fought boss. Oh, it didn't work. So I guess in the next turns we will have Fina and Aika use Panika. But you can see he's going to use this cannon. It's going to hit pretty hard. He's focusing on Vise. We'll see if we survive. But you see it's an impressive attack. Everybody has impressive attacks in these games, but he hits incredibly hard. You can see right there, nearly 3,500 damage. So you want to do everything in your power to sort of stop him from being able to do that. And luckily we have Sacralen crystals, so we don't need to worry about that too much. In fact, we won't have Aika cast Sacralen. What am I doing? She'll use Sacralen crystals on Vise. I'm getting distracted. And we'll try and use Panika here, which is pretty good. And then in the next round, if we can, we'll definitely use Pirate's Wrath. I would like to use... Oh, does that take him out? Oh, shit. That is just bad news bears right there.
Let's try this.
It's a waste of a Sacralen crystal, too. So I guess next turn we're using Lunar Light.
Move. Give me strength.
And hopefully he'll get confused here, which will be good. And we'll just use... or maybe we'll use a Ryslem crystal. He should be far more susceptible to panic. He's going to knock out Fina. Ooh, boy. We have encountered a tough situation here. She's down. Yeah. So we really need to just revive Fina, use Lunar Light, and just get through this as quickly as possible. So I have Ryslem crystals, but I have the Ryslem box. We'll use the box. And Gilder, in the meantime... We just want to keep on trying to inflict panic on him.
Let's try this.
And the box didn't break, which is good. So Vigoro, just a tough boss encounter. An exciting boss encounter. I like what's going on here. I like the framing again. We always have good framing in these games of what's going on. The moving down the elevator sort of pathway is very enjoyable. Although I'll tell you right now, I am missing Enrique just because of how much Justice Shield would be useful here. You can see Cannon Fire is just a death sentence for anybody except for Vise and Gilder.
Moons, give me strength.
So we're trying to do whatever we can in order to prevent him from using it, and just sort of single him into using normal attacks. But it's missing over and over, so I'm a little weary right now of what's going on. And we'll sort of just deal with things as they go. One issue is that so many people are slotted for purple, which red does damage against, but purple also does damage against red. I can't think of my elemental affinities right now, which is a bummer, and hopefully it'll come to me during combat. Random Fire is a very dangerous ability too, because it's just going to hit everyone. And I'm not a fan of that situation. Okay, so we can't really afford to waste too much time here, which is a bummer. Sacrum, unless we do another round of Lunar Light. No, we can't even do that. Okay, so Cutlass Fury it is. I want to try Panika one last time. Defense and attack. Not that the defense will do anything good there, but I'm sort of really thinking through my options here.
Take that.
It's sort of a bummer. That's gonna knock out a lot of people. Or at least Fina. Fina and Aika. Jesus.
Must not lose. I'm so sorry.
So maybe I want to switch to blue, because that's also a weakness. Or red has a weakness to it. You could be watching something very dangerous indeed. So let's just get in our damage while we can. You can see when I do damage to Vigoro, it's okay. I didn't change my elemental slots. That's a problem. Yeah, blue would have been better here. Because red does do less against blue. Okay, that's a saving grace right there. Critical attack or no, it's still saving grace. Because we want to save up here for as much as we can. Sacrilyn on Vise. Ryzlim. We just keep on using the box until it breaks.
Let's try this.
Ryzlim on Aika. Like, this is just a straight up Let's Play moment where I have to focus on the battle. We can talk more about how Vigoro is handled. He induced panic on her. That's sort of a bummer.
This should work.
But at least he did it after we did Sacrilyn, so I'm okay with that. So let me see. We might be able to use Pirate's Wrath this round? Yes. So let's switch to blue. Let's just mess this guy up. Actually... yeah, just to make sure that he doesn't do a lot of damage to her. And then... oh, that's right, Gilder doesn't have a lot of his special moves in this playthrough. Hey, look at that, even confused, she attacks, which is good. And then I think if he attacks her... I don't know if that breaks confusion. I don't think it does. Let's watch this and cross our fingers and hope that Vise brings him down to 0. Dangrel 2, like I said, there's not a lot going on. In fact, the pace of the game now is faster than it's probably ever been. But really, you're dealing with... oh yeah, look at that. That's some great damage. So we're done. But Dangrel 2, Vigoro is... it's a hard boss. And you can see why. We'll talk about him a little bit after this fight is done.
That's fun.
Mostly because this is not Skies of Arcadia Legends, but it is worth talking about Skies of Arcadia Legends in the context of Vigoro. Parantaseed. Definitely going to Vise. Right? So here's this thing. Vigoro accepts his defeat surprisingly graciously. Not enough for me to sit back or forgive Vigoro for anything. But he says, you know, like, hey, good luck. Right? So... our characters forgive him, and he says, I don't know, maybe I'll become an air pirate. In Skies of Arcadia Legends, he does just that. He chases you... well, he doesn't chase you. He comes to Crescent Isle, and he's a hidden boss fight after you've completed a lot of side quest stuff.
Goodbye.
And he's probably one of the hardest bosses in the game, if not the hardest. So the game, it's very interesting. Vigoro survives the game. Even though in my mind, based upon some of the things that he's done, and I'm certain that plenty of people will agree with me, his behavior's like, reprehensible, right? But this is a game where characters always have a choice, right? The villains always have a choice of continuing on or just, like, backing off and, like, recognizing, like, what they are doing. So, to some extent, somewhere, Vigoro has the self-sense to be like, well, okay, we're done. Other characters don't do that. De Loco doesn't. Although we could sit back and argue whether or not De Loco has the actual mental cogency to do so. But that's sort of a tricky thing for us to consider. And I've been generally dismissive, by the way, of talking about De Loco as a character for whom mental illness or implied mental illness is kind of used as a crutch. I sort of see it more of a tinkery scientist type deal, but I note that this is also probably me trying to minimize the problematic things that exist within Skies of Arcadia just because I like it via a strong sense of nostalgia. I'll address this probably during my closing comments of the playthrough. But nevertheless, De Loco certainly, like, everybody has that choice, right? And it's almost literally represented when Galcian gives them that choice. To continue with their sort of evil. Vigoro has the sense to see, like, okay, well, I've been bested by somebody who is better than me. So Vigoro, in his departure, is sort of hard to compare to the way that he's introduced to us. I'm not saying that the game is inconsistent. In fact, the game's being remarkably consistent by allowing him to escape and live. But it might not be particularly satisfying for many players. And so we are in the central chamber of Soltis. But no, my friends, we are not done with the game. But something great is going to happen, and by that I mean just something powerful and really interesting. Another term I use a little too often, but they have gathered all the moon crystals. They are about to break the seal on Zelos, the Silver Gigas. And Galcian will be able to call down the rains of destruction whenever he wants. And so we have another encounter here. Not too hard of an encounter. So if this is silver, now I remember some of my elemental stuff. If it's silver, then we'll just use yellow. Done and done. Vigoro was the harder fight. This is going to be much easier for us to sort of power through. And we can see sort of the connection between the Guardian on Shrine Island and the Guardian here. You know, everything sort of comes a little bit together a little more than it had before. Let me see, do I have... It sounds funny, but it's like I would use an Aura of Valor here just to get through some of this. If I have extra moonberries, I will try and give them to Aika, but Epsilon Mirror is not that useful. I would love to be able to get her to Omega Cyclone, but in all reality, we've pretty much got everybody to where they're going to be with their special attacks for the rest of the game. This segment of the game, especially this segment of the Let's Play, sort of being a little bit more about practical considerations before we get to the big sort of moment with Galcian and everything near this end point here. Which is fine, that just is how it is. We can build up more focus. A great turn would be Gunslinger and Pirate's Wrath. Again, we have really nice space, and this is a space where we get to experience it here, and we will sort of have it contextualized for us in a not completely different context. but the chamber will have a certain different emotional template to it, based upon the characters who are in the space at the time. So we're just going to keep focusing and attacking for now. Because as you can see, Vise is very great at dealing damage. And critical attacks are really lucky for us right now. If he uses Pirate's Wrath in the next turn, he'll probably be able to take care of the monster. Which is fine. Or he can be turned to stone and Fino will have to heal him. Which, whatever. Worse things have happened in the history of Skies of Arcadia. We almost... I'm surprised. There was the real possibility that we were going to lose to Vigoro. I really think so. Where's Magic? Curia. Next turn we're just gonna hit really hard.
Move! Give me strength!
Some of those particle effects overlapping and everything. It is what it is. But everything's working out pretty good. I like it. And the Vorlich Blade, you can see, is just this massive sort of cleaver. I think this might actually be not the earliest, but there have been times where I haven't even had the Vorlich Blade at this point. But, I mean, the first playthrough especially, I didn't know it was a thing. So now we're just going to unload and defeat the boss. Nice and easy. If Pirate's Wrath doesn't do it, Gunslinger will. Yeah, I think Gunslinger will finish it off. Watch me eat my words, though. We'll see. We'll watch it, though. Because we haven't had a chance to watch it in a bit. Go Gilder! Love it. I will never not love it. Yeah, that got it. So definitely the pace of the game, from boss to boss to story beat to story beat. Once we head into Act 4 and then like into the 5th act, which the 5th act is generally easy to see the demarcation of. Hey, another Moonberry. So maybe I will be able to at least get Epsilon Mirror. But see, they're delaying us with the boss, so it actually makes sense. It's not like time has stopped. They're going to break the seal. That's what the boss is for. So I do enjoy the fact that the game's not just like, time is frozen, fight a boss. Oh no, are they still doing the ritual? No, when you were fighting them, they completed the ritual. Not something that the game, you know, is, again, it's not groundbreaking in terms of everything else, but it's like, hey, that's how it works. They are, they are, you know, stalling for time, and that's how everything goes. And they are going to raise the lost continent of Soltis, which will sort of bring us back towards a location from the beginning, of the game. You'll see. So we got to get out of here and back to Dangrel Island. We're going to have another very interesting interaction with the space. So we've talked about how Dangrel Island wasn't a space that was transformed during our first time there. This is going to be a time where it is significantly transformed. Or at least the way that we are moving back upwards changes in a very dramatic way. And by which I don't mean like drastic, by which I mean like in terms of like actual drama. I was running against that little block thing for a minute. But yeah, when we get to this point of the game, it's like, oh, I just can't put it down. Beat to beat, moment to moment, I adore it. It's been a long journey, so if you really have made it through all of these videos, type the word banana bread, and I'll know. Leave a comment that says banana bread. because I love Spy Party. Oh no, I went around in a loop. I thought the ladder was... I didn't realize it was right in front of us. I'm a dope. I'm Charles Barkley. Yeah, so this is... It's just... My capacity for words is starting to fail me as the game continues to certainly impress me. How the stakes of the scenarios continue to impress me. And I hope that they would impress you. So here we're going to have our really, like, this is one of my favorite sort of set piece moments. You know, we're going to head up using the elevator. But things are going to change pretty quickly. Because everything's sort of falling apart around us. So the elevator's all screwed up and we gotta run. Right, it's like, I got an idea. This is some swashbuckling action at its best. Gonna run up the rail. But we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to run up the rail. And you can see that each segment of the game is shorter, but everything that's happening in it is more condensed and there's more sort of stuff. And I'm sort of just letting the stuff present itself more than I am sitting back and trying to comment in a completely comprehensive fashion about all of the stuff. I'm sort of letting the plot unfold and letting you sort of experience what's going on. But this is, I like this set piece because the island is really just starting to fall apart. And so we didn't have dramatic shifts in the architecture of the space. But now we're getting it, where we're getting this whole segment where it's like you just have to keep on running. And it's just got this great sort of long camera angle to it, which really impresses the amount of distance that you're traveling. And you can't just stand and wait. You have to keep running. So the fascination with sort of altering the space or making us navigate the space in different contexts or sort of charged contexts continues. As Soltis rises from the depths of the ocean. Cool little bit of action right there, too. Not a graceful landing, but an exciting bit of action. And so we have this thing where the scale of the game, of what's going on, really is something like, now we're getting to like, this is felt worldwide, where everything is really dire. It's not like, and we thought that Gigas were these large threats. Now we have this continent rising and the world trembling and everything else going on. And so one of the things I love is that Soltis rises. Oh, it's Drachma, by the way. Solstice rises, and Shrine Island takes its place back where it originally was. It was part of Solstice. So this piece of this big island, this landmass that we obviously had no way of knowing was a thing, returns to where it once was, and we can see, you know, the sort of nexus of where the bad guy sort of sets up shop is where the story sort of first began. And I find that very interesting. I like things that are vaguely cyclical in the patterns that they take. So I like this notion of starting in a place and then returning to it in a different context. And if we want to talk about a different context, this is a hugely different context. Right? And so it's right before us, and we're like, hey, we should go straight to Solstice. But as we will see, such a statement is easier said than done. Hexagons. Of course, the shield has to be made of magical hexagons. It's like a rule. Also, if you look at this picture, it's kind of funny. The little wings from the Delphinus look like little wing horn things on Vise's head. That's adorable. I just noticed that right now. Look at that. Got little... Now you're not going to be able to watch the scene or pay attention to the dialogue. Basically, there's a wall of light that's put up to protect Solstice from the Gigas, and Galcian is using it to sort of protect himself. And so the stakes of everything are just... He has this magical fortress. We can't break through it. At the heart of it, he has access to the most powerful weapon at all. Also, again, I feel like I'm stressing the Ramirez sexuality thing too much, but like his devotion is just so strong. So they call forth rains of destruction from the yellow moon onto Valua. And so throughout the game, the moons are these things that civilizations praise. And Galcian does this really cool, almost religious or like metaphysical middle finger to the people. Not metaphysical, let's call it a religious middle finger to the people of the world down below. He takes the thing in the world that people revere the most. He takes the moons. And he's like, okay, you worship this thing. It's the source of our power, blah, blah, blah. Or whatever sort of attributions people give to it. And he subverts it and quite literally makes that icon of worship destroy the people down below. It's a really sort of grand and dastardly thing that I enjoy. He takes the moon, the very moon, the thing that gives everybody their power, the thing that is revered, and uses it to attack everyone. And Beleza is bringing Enrique out of Valua. But will it be too late? And also remember too, like this is important in the sense that Galcian chooses the most powerful country in the world to make an example of. He says, okay, this is the country that has the potential or the drive to destroy the entire world. I'm going to take the most centralized power in the world, subjugate the moon that it worships, and destroy everybody. It is an amazing moment for a villain. It's a really strong moment for a villain. This, like... I don't know. It's hard for me to think of a villainous moment that tops it, at least in terms of grandeur. There are certainly villainous moments in games that might top it in emotional content. Like, there's some stuff in Xenosaga that Albedo does that's fucked up. But in terms of scale and in terms of sort of symbolic meaning, what Galcian does here is a really, like, possibly one of my favorite things that a villain has done in a JRPG. I mean, when I think of villains in JRPGs, you think of something, and sometimes it can be more personal, right? So, Sephiroth jumping down from the light beam in the Forbidden City, the ancient city, and stabbing Aerith. I mean, that's the prime example that people might think of. They might think of Nibelheim as well. But this is mass death. Absolute mass destruction. And just the grandeur of it, like, it sounds so funny for me to be so taken in by it, but it's such, like, Galcian has been waiting, and I've talked about this notion in terms of the combat system of, like, wait, expand. It's almost Galcian's entire plan. It's wait, have other people do the legwork, grab all the magical things I need, and then when the time comes, friggin' fuck everybody over. His entire, like, he's been such a fairly passive force in the game that when he becomes active, it's really scary. The sort of depths of his depravity, that he's willing to essentially wipe a large portion of the world off the map in order to make basically a statement. He's not even doing it because he sees these people as a threat. There's no threat to him that he can imagine. He says, fuck it, I'm gonna just light everything on fire. You want to see the world burn? I'm gonna do it. And then from those ashes, I will rebuild a world, ruled by me as some sort of crazy Ubermensch type figure. It's really powerful. This is the moment in the game where things are the most hopeless, and even our heroes don't fully know how to respond. And that is, that should shock us. We should feel very sort of shocked at what's going on. So we will head back to Crescent Island, but I will see you there in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Things are getting really exciting, and we're almost near the end of it all. So I will see you then. Bye.